Hi everyone, my name is Kayode. Even my children don't know how to pronounce my name, so if you mispronounce it, I won't take offense. Today I want to just tell stories. I kind of felt a lot of people would have talked about the techniques and the science and the research and all the processes we go through. So I wanted to take a more storytelling approach. I wanted to walk through my career and kind of touch on some experiences or some things that have changed my thinking and how I deal with specifically stakeholders. But before I talk about stakeholders, I want you to know a little bit about me. I'm married to that wonderful woman called Doi. We have 2 daughters, ladies, they call themselves, Tamilore and Damisi. And this is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy photography, so you can tell I've been spying all the cameras around, looking at who's using Canon and who's unfortunate to be using Nikon. Sony's still not sure where they are yet. Cycling is my joy and pleasure. I got knocked off a bike 4 weeks ago, and I learned the meaning of the word coccyx for the first time. And then I enjoy a bit of writing. I used to act on stage when I was in uni. That still ask me how long ago that is. To give you a sense of how old I am, my daughter is graduating from uni in June. So that's how old I am. I won't tell you exactly how. But I enjoy writing fiction, and I used to act on stage. So let me see, what's the next slide? Am I sure this is working? I'm having to press it a few times. Okay, yeah. I always like talking about a few people that have helped me along the way. Like they say, you stand on the shoulders of giants. These are 3 giants in my life. Therese Agabeth, the fiercest leader I know. A little bit of history about me. I grew up in Nigeria, and I went to a military school, so I know what it is to have strong leaders. That's the strongest leader I've ever worked for. Like, Therese is the kind of person, it's hard to explain until you experience her. She makes you know there's nothing you demand of her as a leader that she wouldn't fight for you. Like, I can remember there's a story I always think about. I was in a meeting, I was presenting a design, and one of the topmost people in the company was querying, asking me some questions, but it was a bit adversarial, kind of like, oh, why did you do this, and why did, and she said, hold on a minute, he's the designer, why are you asking all these questions? He's made his decision. If you don't have any scientific reason to go against it, that's the decision. And I was like, Therese, it's not that bad, I don't mind. And she's like that. She's like a mother hen. She's like a fierce eagle. Joe Gill is one of the loveliest people I've ever worked under. My interview with Joel was very funny because I contracted for 10 years before I worked for JPMorgan and before I worked for the company before then. I contracted for quite a bit, actually over 10 years. And so I'm used to interviewing. I actually enjoy interviewing, even though you tell me no, it doesn't bother me. I don't mind interviewing. But I was used to the classic interview, which is you go in, you sit down, they ask you a few questions, what do you think about the role, blah, 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 and then you show your portfolio. Like most all of us are ready for that portfolio. That's where we want to get to, because you get to talk about the work, which is what they're employing you for. And Joel he didn't ask me for my portfolio. Like, we just talked like it was like 2 buddies in a bar. We just chatted about life and things and what's your motivation. And I kept on, like a part of me was like, we're running out of time here now, so when are we going to talk about it? And we got to the end and he said, okay, thanks, you hear back from us. And I was like, really? So I left and the thing is, the agency calls you immediately after, so how did it go? I was like, this is the first time I really don't know. Like, most times I know if it went badly and I doubt they're going to call me back. And sometimes I expect it's going to be good and they still don't call me back. But this one was one shocking one. I really couldn't place it. I said, we had a good chat, but that was it. We didn't talk about my work. And then it turns out to be he's a people person. So he's more about the person. He's more about knowing who you are rather than what you can do. And, sorry, I went too fast. And then Sean. Sean is the most technical person I've ever worked with when it comes to UX. Now, before I worked for Sean, I had very good experience. I'd been in the game for a long time. So I knew all my process and everything. What Sean taught me was how to put structure to UX. Sean taught me how to look at a problem and being able to identify very quickly what research you needed to do, where the gaps were, how to cost a UX project, how to know exactly how much you have to bill the client. These were skills I didn't have before, things I hadn't done a lot of. And I like Sean's method. Sean's method is like, okay, so we need to bill this client, this is the paper, and then it walks off. And you're like, really? and then you play around, try to find solution, and then he comes back and he asks you questions. He doesn't just tell you this is the way you should have done it. He literally asks you questions that make you think, and then you work out the solution yourself. So these are three people I want to give credit for. I mean, there are a lot more, but these are three that stood out that I thought would be lovely to mention. So who's a stakeholder? I'm talking about stakeholders today. So let me put context so we don't just go haywire about what a stakeholder is. Some people say users are stakeholders. Unfortunately, I disagree with you. Users are not stakeholders. Users are like the end benefit of it. So you might disagree with me, and there's no problem with that. But for the sake of my talk, let's qualify a stakeholder as anyone who has a vested interest, apart from the end user, who has a vested interest in the outcome. So it could be lead engineering, it could be engineers, it could be the product owner, it could be the sponsors, it could be the company-wide. Like the CEO of my company is a stakeholder to the product if he has a vested interest in the outcome. So just to give you context. Now, most of my examples are going to touch around senior stakeholders like sponsors and the really senior level people. That just happens to be the example. It applies to anybody. It actually applies to people that quote unquote are subordinate to you. So maybe junior UX people who are working under you. It could apply to the engineer who's coding the application you're working on. So I'll play this and then we'll talk about stakeholders.
Olha aqui, ó. Pedro. O papai aqui, ó.
E aí, Pedrinho já foi, Pedrinho já foi. Acabou, Pedro. O Pedro nem chora porque ele é forte.
Calma, Pedrinho.
E Pedro mais corajoso. Deixa não. Pronto.
Okay, that's enough of you seeing a grown man cry. Now, I showed that to make a statement about how I see stakeholders. So, the child is the end user. The doctor is the fantastic UX person. But the stakeholder is the dad crying. That is your stakeholder. I think, this is a video that went around a few years ago. But one thing that stood out to me that I like using the doctor analogy for UX. I use it all the time, whether it's stakeholder or any other thing. I always feel the doctor is the UX designer. But why that stood out to me is who has the highest level of interest in that child, the doctor or the parent? The parent has more interest in that child's well-being. The doctor happens to be the expert, right? But the doctor shouldn't act out of the perspective of the parent. Now, if you look at stakeholders that way, it begins to change the way you look at stakeholders. Now, before we go a little bit into stakeholders, I want to talk about a story of global gas platform that I worked on. This is probably one of my, I'll probably say one of my most successful UX projects, but also it had a tinge of sadness, but I'll come to sadness later. So I joined this project, first day I joined, and they said, we've built this platform, now we want you to UX it. And I was like, oh goodness, are you kidding me? So I went back to the head of UX, like, what do they mean by we want you to UX? They've built the platform already. Anyway, that's a different story. But so what I did was, okay, what does success look like to you? Like when I quote unquote UX it, what does success look like? And nobody could tell me what success looked like. Like it was just like, just do the UX thing that you guys do. So I said, okay, no, we can't just do the UX thing. We first have to find out what are the problems. Why did you build this application? Let's find out what the problems were in the old application. And then when we know what the problems are, we can then see, okay, has what you built moved us away from the problems or given us solutions? Have we actually added more complexity or more problems to the platform? So we then started doing, we started with a bit of ethnographic research. So just to give you context, the global gas platform is a platform that does two things. One is it sends data to traders. So traders pick the data that comes from that platform. It feeds into Reuters, it feeds into most trading applications. So we're the number one distributor of data for trading in petroleum in the world. So you can imagine how many places that data goes to. So one is data, but the other one is analysis. So if there's a fire in Nigeria, if there's a fire in, not fire, let's say there's a political uprising in Nigeria, that's going to affect the price of crude oil. we need to know that we need to make an analysis and see how it's going to determine the price of oil. If there's an invasion in the Middle East, it's going to affect the price of oil. So all those analyses are done, and people then make reports and send them out almost like as it happens. They're making that analysis and they're sending it out. They're also sending trading data of how much. We are like a benchmarking agency. I'm trying not to mention the company, but we're a benchmarking agency. So, but what happens is we also speculate on price, and people trade off that price. Like people will say, we're trading off the so price is this, therefore we want to go higher or lower. So if the market is bad, you want to go lower. If the market is good, you want to go higher. So that's basically the context. So it's not a platform that you can get wrong. It's because of the speed at which people need to move when things happen around the world. Like look at Russia, that's affected our fuel. So what I did was we did ethnographic research with the analysts in-house. So we wanted to know how the analysts worked on that platform. But I also did, so that ethnographic research was done by the research team. But what I did specifically was I did, what's it called again? When you sit with someone, my mind's just going blank on it. When you sit with users, what's it called? What's it called? It's my notes. Let me check my notes. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, I sat with them and I asked them, you literally walk them through their day and you watch what the steps they take to execute against their tasks. And say, someone mentioned it just now. Shadowing. It's shadowing, but anyway, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. So I literally walked through their day and then watch them, contextual inquiry, that's what I was looking for. So you sit in context of their work, right? You watch them do their work. Well, for the life of me, contextual inquiry just jumped out of my head. you walk through their day, you watch them use the application, and then you ask them questions, and you tell them to mouth out loud what they're doing. So it's slightly different from a usability test. You're actually looking at the actual problem at the time. You're not trying to solve it yet. You're just trying to get context of what they use, what are the tools, the other tools they use. So do they use Excel when they're using this application? Do they take notes on the notepad, or have they listened to someone else and then they're transcribing those notes into the platform? So literally went through that. By the time I got to the third person, I noticed they were bookmarking. Like a lot of them, when you say, okay, give them this task or ask them about the task, they will open a bookmark in the browser. Now, this is an in-house application that's built in-house. This is not a third-party tool. Initially, I thought, oh, they bookmarked a few pages just, to find them. Maybe those are the common pages. By the time I got to the third, fourth person, every page was bookmarked. Like, can you imagine an application where you've bookmarked every page you go to? What's the number one thing that's wrong? The navigation is wrong. Like, you don't need to be a UX designer to know that the navigation is wrong. And then I started zeroing on that, asking them, why do you bookmark? Oh, because I can never find things. A tool you use every day of your life, you can't find things. So that's straight away I knew the IA needed to be looked at. So now I'm going to narrow in on the IA. That was not the only thing we worked on, but just for the purpose of this so that I don't ramble on. So we did the classic. We brought out our card sorting, and we did the tree jerking and the reverse card sorting, and we built models, and we literally built test models in Axure. Sorry, I am old school. Axure is better than Figma. But anyway, I know I've just dropped a bomb now and I'm in trouble, so I'm going to run away immediately after this. But I built test models in Axure in which you can actually, it's almost like a kind of a tree jerking, but they can't go back. They can only go in one direction because this is a specialist tool. That needs to work at speed. So I needed to know if people failed on their first trial. So when we built the test model, we ran the test models. What we got was, when we ran the first test model based on the existing navigation system, it did 29.41 people being able to find what they were looking for. The same test with with same not the same people, the same sample of users. People 70.9%. This was at first try. We haven't even built this thing yet. We just tested the navigation. 70%, 7.9% of the time they were able to find what they were looking for. So, wow, this was like UX heaven for me. Like, if you've ever done IA work, 70 is high for navigation success on a first trial. You've not even gone to second phase of analyzing how can we improve it. You've not built anything, you just built a test model of navigation. So one day I was walking, this is where the story now becomes funny. I was walking after one of those sessions where you're feeling on a high, adrenaline is going through your body, you're going for lunch, and my stakeholder was with me and she was asking me questions, why are we doing all this, she doesn't really understand. I was like, is she being negative or what? So I kind of like paid attention, like, what do you mean? She said, but this is taking too much time. She's built the navigation in Excel. I was like, did you just say you have the navigation system in Excel? I'm like, what do you mean by that? She said, oh, no. That all these things I'm doing, she can appreciate it, but she has an Excel file that has the new navigation system. I was like, how did you get the navigation system into Excel? Well, I know the users. I'm the product owner. I've worked with users for, sorry if there are any product owners. I'm not bashing product owners, believe me. You know, she was adamant. And I tried to explain the science. I tried to explain what card sorting does, all the things. We did more than that, but I tried to walk her through the process. I had a session with her. Next day, not next day, a few days later, I got called into the office by my head of UX. Like, Kayode, your stakeholder is not happy. What's happening? I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's done this. So I explained everything to him. He was like, oh, like the process. In fact, I'm impressed. Fine, I'll talk to her. 2 weeks later, we got called by the director of UX. Oh, God. Like, she just couldn't understand what we were wasting time doing, and she fought us every step of the way. Like, it was sad because the project was successful, but eventually what happened is it just got descoped. And then all of a sudden there was not budget for it anymore. And then after a while, I just got moved to another project because short of leaving the company, that was the only thing my boss could do. Now, at the time, it was like war. It was like, we have the science. How dare you challenge the science? The science is perfect. What do you mean? What do you mean you've got it in Excel? And I was on my high horse, riding around the place, championing UX with my flags, waving it around. UX shall win, shall survive. But a few years later, after I left the company, I literally was this close to using UX. I was so disillusioned about how you're constantly fighting and constantly trying to get budget, and they always come to us when everything is built, and you're almost like the last rung on the ladder, and all of a sudden you have to put out all the fires. But then I had a second, I won't say an epiphany, but like what I would call, was there something I was supposed to pay attention to that I didn't? Where is my personal responsibility in what happened? And I know I've been in UX for a long time, and one of the things I experience is there's that thing when we get to the water cooler and we're UX and we just moan about all the stakeholders, how they have all the power, how we have the best ideas and we're the ones that actually go to the users, and how dare them not support our ideas and give us all the budget we want. And in fact, we should be the one running the company. But then let's enjoy this video and see. Oh, before I play the video, this is my take on it now. But let's see why.
I'll take the thumb. Are you kidding me? Wow.
Okay, I'm cheating there. The baby does cry in the second injection. But it doesn't make a great story if you saw the baby crying. So, what's the key difference between that and the first one? Exactly the same scenario. Okay, the baby wants an older child, or wants a toddler, or maybe older than a toddler. For me, the key difference is engagement with the parents. You hear the voice of a woman say, "Are you kidding me?" Like they're all engaged. They're all, in the first one, the dad is behind. In fact, you don't notice he's there until you see him crying, right? You can see, if you could notice his arm, but you probably wouldn't notice he was there physically until the camera pans to him. With this one, the parents are kind of like taken along. They're in the conversation. They're engaged. They're seeing the process. The doctor is doing his best to distract the baby, but in fact, later in the video, because I can't just play the whole video, otherwise I won't have time to talk. But later in the video, he actually says to the parents, I'm not going to get away with it the second time. And he is correct. He doesn't get away with it. The baby does cry. But for me, that taught me a lot about stakeholder management, or I won't say taught, that video particularly didn't teach me, but the principle of it taught me a lot about stakeholder management. I actually don't like to use management because it gives the impression of something's gone wrong and then you're trying to manage them. You're trying to kind of like strong arm them into understanding what UX is about. I see it more like partnership. I see stakeholder management. I would rather call it stakeholder partnership, or partnering with other people who have vested interest in the outcome of a project. So now I have a different take on how I look at stakeholders. When I join a project, the first thing I look for is the decision-making tree. Who are the people at the top? Who's the most powerful person here? Who's the person that can, with one stroke of their pen, cancel these projects? And I try to get a personal relationship with them. I reach out to them. Sometimes it's not possible. I have to be quite frank about it, but I'll say 80% of the times I actually get to speak to them, even if it's 10 minutes. And the first few times, I don't actually focus on the project. Like, I make it seem as if I'm going to focus on the project, because otherwise they won't give you time. Like, you can just call like a very senior person and say, I just want to have a chat with you. Like, why? You know, so what I do is I say, oh, I'm the new UX person on the project. I just want to see if I can get 10 minutes to introduce myself. And one of the things I do is to introduce myself, but to also get to know them. Like when I connect with, no, let me not go to this yet. Let me not go back. Oh, it's not going to go back. I don't mind. One of the things I do when I meet stakeholders, I want to know that person. I want to look into their eyes and understand what is their expectation for the projects. One of the reasons why, oh, it's gone back. Are you kidding me? I was literally about to talk about rugby and it just went back. One of the things I like about thinking about projects now is to think of it like a team. I use this because I love the All Blacks. I don't really watch rugby that much, but I just love the All Blacks. They look cool in their All Blacks and they're very scary. I would not want to be on the opposing team to these people. Like I want to be in their team, you know? But that's the way I also see partnering with stakeholders. I want to be on their team and I want them to be on my team. I want us to be in the same team. I don't want it to be adversarial, like where it's them and us. I want us to be partners trying to achieve the same goal. Now, team does not mean we have the same exact objectives, because sometimes you can't control the objectives they have. You can only control your objectives. Now, what I mean by that is this. In a football team, yes, I'm using football examples with a rugby team in my back, but in a football team, what's the key objective of the goalie, the goalkeeper? Is to stop balls getting into the net. The key objective of the striker is to put a ball in the net, not his own net, the opposition's net. Otherwise, he will be fired, or he or she will be fired. So they're in the same team. The ultimate goal is the same, but the objectives of the individual team members is different. But it's best for all of us to know each other's objectives. Otherwise, if you kick off the match and you see your goalie like on the halfway line, you're like, what's he doing here? You expect he or her to be in the goal, not on the halfway line because of their objectives. So one of the first things I always want to know is, what is my stakeholder's objective? Whether it's tech stakeholder, product. A good example is this. Say you're working on a project where we want to increase conversion, right? That's what the objective of the project says, and that's so we benchmark what is the conversion now, right? We want to know if we make a change, we've improved the system. One of your stakeholders or one of your key stakeholders' objectives, she might just want recognition of that project in the business. Maybe that business has been starved of funding, and that's her key objective. Now, if you don't know that and you don't treat that, she's going to fight you every step of the way because her objectives are not being met. And her objectives are valid; they're not invalid. Because we always just think, oh, the user doesn't care if the business makes. If the business doesn't make money, your project is going to die anyway. So you better make the business money. So the idea is, what is the key objective? No, not that yet. Sorry, I don't know. I'm going ahead of myself. Yeah. So the understanding the key objective of every person in the team is very important. And another key thing that I look for when I meet a stakeholder is what has not worked in the past. What has stressed the living daylights out of you in the past? So has this project failed before? Have you tried to launch this project and it tanked, or the figures did not match the expectation of what whoever UX or non-UX person wanted out of it? Those are things you need to know what yardstick of success. Even dev, the engineering team, what does success look for them? Do they want to revamp some of the code? They've had legacy code for a while. Are they using this as an opportunity to change their code base? You need to know all these things. So you need to sit with these people early, and lay the right foundation so that these things don't pop up further down the line. And if they do pop up, you are aware of them, or at least you've got a hint of them, and you have a contingent plan for that. Just trying to see how I'm doing for time. Okay, so I want to go into some tips, and this might not work for everyone, although I do think it can work for everyone to some degree, depending on your personality. But I want to talk about some strategies that I use personally when I've mentioned a few of them, but I want to be more intentional about two key ones that I think is useful for anyone that needs to engage with senior people. So this one I learned, this is not the CEO I'm talking about, but I do a bit of photography, like I mentioned, and I actually did it commercially a bit. Even yes, I was a UX and doing commercial photography at the same time. So this CEO had just become the CEO of a large asset and wealth management company in the States. He's European, and they needed someone to take photographs to go for newsletter. He was still going to go to the States, and have the big photo shoot with a big studio. But they needed someone to come in-house to photograph him so that they could put out news bulletins and everything. And I remember when I got the email, the PA or whoever assistant I had was like, oh, he's very busy. He's only going to have 5 minutes, and you're going to have to be quick, so you have to be set up before he comes. And I was thinking, I didn't call to photograph this guy. Why are you stressing me out? Like, if you say that you want him photographed or not. I mean, I didn't quite say that, otherwise they would have employed me. But I kind of was a bit taken aback, like, what's all the stress about? So I called my contact there, and he said, don't worry, he's very chill. So anyway, I was prepared in case, I had 5 minutes, I could still get the shot. Met the guy. From the moment I met him, he said hello, hi. He said, oh, your name is pronounced Kayode, like the Kayo and Day. And I think there's only 3 places my name is spelled like that. My CV, which he didn't have access to because I was a UX CV, on my site, and where's the third place is LinkedIn. Those are the only 3 places. So he's probably gone onto LinkedIn on my personal site and seen my name. And I'm thinking, this guy's a multimillionaire. Like, why is he researching me? Like, that first kind of it just stuck in my head. Then we talked on, and I was photographing him, so we went to different locations. We ended up spending 45 minutes together. So I don't know where she got 5 minutes from, but anyway. Got downstairs and we photographed him, and he said, oh, how's your team doing now? I hear that they're really struggling. I said, my team? He said, yeah, Arsenal. He knew I was an Arsenal fan. How did he know that? Like, so what I ended up finding out, he had asked the point guy who got me to do the job a little bit about me, and then asked, he's into, and he made a connection with me on a personal level that really, really touched me. Like, this is someone he could have just come in stoic, like, okay, where do you want me to stand? Stand there, okay, I'll take photographs and leave. He went out of his way to find out about me. And it doesn't mean even if he did know nothing about me, I feel he's the kind of person who could have asked me there and then. Because we just talked, and we talked about football, we talked about stuff, all the different things. He talked about my camera. He just showed so much interest in me. And that taught me the main thing about connecting with someone is to first connect with them as a human being. Rather than connect with them as a stakeholder first, connect with them as a person. Is he a lady? Is he a guy? What race are they? One of the reasons why I pronounce my name in every presentation I give on my CV, on anything I'm sending to someone, is because I know the average person is uncomfortable. They don't want to get my name wrong. Now, I'm not fussed about it, but how do I make them feel I'm not fussed about it? Is to make it easy for them to pronounce it. Those are the kind of strategies you need when you're engaging with someone. And then the other one, to me, this is the bigger one. Now, this one, depending on your personality type, some people believe work is work, and you just go to work, you do what you're paid to do, and you leave. I personally take a different view. I think if you go to work with that sense of work is work, you're robbing yourself, number one, of relationships that can go beyond work. That's the first thing. Like the Joe I mentioned, he's been to my housewife, I've been to his house. I've not worked for him in 5 years, and yet we're friends, because I value the relationship. But the reason why I talk about generosity and I talk about looking to give more than you get out of relationships is because we're all, in a way, and some of us are the most altruistic people here, but in a way we're naturally, without any motivation otherwise, we're naturally selfish. We're all self-interested. We start from a place of what benefits me. And so when someone else comes and the person benefits you, you take notice. You actually, wow, okay, that person went out of their way to do something that they're not paid to do. It could be anything. Like it's, and you have to be careful with this one because sometimes you can become a doormat. And that's not what I'm advocating. I'm not advocating for people to use you anyhow, right? I'm advocating for you to be intentional about being a giver. What I mean, but let me give you some examples. So when I was working for a company, they came to me one day and said, we're working with this business and we feel the business is at risk. We have some challenging relationships and things have not gone well. We've probably let the customer down in a few areas, so they're not really happy with us. So they called me and said, oh, we want you to go there. So I said, oh, okay, tell me about the role. It's a business analyst role. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not a business analyst. I'm a UX designer. Why are you telling me to go do a business analyst job? They said, well, we want someone who really understands how to deal with very senior people and very difficult situations. But if you say no, we'll understand. So I had a chat with my wife, who's the real brain in my head, and I talked to her, and she was like, "Yeah, what's the worst? It won't work out, and then you come back. They know you're not a BA." So I said, "Okay, I'll go." So I went on and this was a very lovely guy. We kind of like got on well. He's a cyclist like me, so we talk about cycling all the time. So, and he's a very senior manager. But I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I went there and fortunately turned it around. They actually extended the contract. I ended up leaving, and they sent another BA there. But I could have said no. I could have said I'm not paid to do that. Right, I know your contract says they always write UX and other, but you can literally say no, you're not trained for it, But I decided to do it, and things like that, things like junior partners coming and saying, oh, I have this problem with I don't know how to resize this photograph. Resizing photograph is like I have junior designers to do that, but it will take me 5 minutes to open Photoshop, resize it, and send it back. Things like that. What I've learned is when people know that you're generous, and when people know that you can help, you always help. When you're not in the room, people will fight your corner. And that's what reminds me of Therese. She was that kind of person. She was always generous. She will go out of her way, even though she was your manager, to help you and to make you have the best situation around you and support to help you do your job. And I think when we lead that way in a UX project, where it's not just about us, it's not just what we want out of it, it's what can I do to help you. When someone just says, oh, could you just quickly, a tech person says, oh, we don't have UX resource, can you just have a quick look at this? You might not have the time now. You say, okay, I don't have the time now. In a week's time, put a meeting in my calendar, we can have a look at it. It's not your project, but you can still help. And I think that sense of generosity always makes people want to help you. And it's easier to influence people that way than when you just want to use the science of UX alone. Now, I have to wrap up, otherwise I'll be here till the end of today. These are 3 great resources that I think would help anyone. The first one is a wonderful book, Never Eat Alone. It talks about the fact that it's not about you alone. And this is mostly for business. It's not really talking about UX. It's really a book about business, how when you go into business, it's not just about your idea and you doing it alone. You're a lot more likely to succeed when you have someone with you than when you do things alone. Now, I'm not saying turn all your ideas into partnerships. I'm just saying look beyond yourself as resource, and also have that mentality when you're also doing it for other people. So if someone needs your help, always be there for them. Second one is, I think everybody and his dog knows about this one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's still a great book. Like I read it like 5 years ago and I was like, this book is so old and yet all these nuggets are still there. The last one is a book I've read, about halfway. It's on my Kindle at the moment. I'm reading about halfway, but it just blew my mind from the first few paragraphs. It's about when you have an idea, it's not about how to execute the idea, it's who are the people we need to get together to execute the idea. The who's are more important than the how's, because the who's help you move faster. But also, see yourself as the who for the other people. You are the who to the stakeholders' problems. What the stakeholder is trying to get out of it is you are the answer to that. And I think when and hopefully we pick a few strategies that we find ourselves from these books and from other people as we talk today. But yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for enjoying the last 30-ish minutes. And yeah, I'm open to questions.